Hello and welcome to another lighting diagram lesson. My name is Trenton Hoshiko, and today we're talking about this picture of a delicious looking hamburger. This is a photo by Valeria Boltneva that I pulled off of Pexels and wanted to talk about how you could achieve a lighting look that's similar to this one. Before I get started, if you want to get my Filmmaker Tools template for Draw.io, completely free, you don't have to do anything to get it. It is available on my Patreon at patreon.com/TrentonHoshiko. I have a link to the direct page down below in the video's description, and you get all of these tools up here to help get you started in making your own lighting diagrams. Draw.io itself is a free and open source diagramming software that I think is really useful for making filmmaking diagrams easily and for free. While you're there on my Patreon, you can join and become a free member or become a paid supporter for just $2. I really appreciate everybody who's already gone and joined and become a member or a supporter. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I am currently striving to reach 100 total members and 15 paid supporters. That Patreon really does help support me in making both these lighting diagrams and my main cinematography videos. So I think the first thing to notice about this picture is that it looks delicious. And when doing food photography in particular, that is what you want. The bun has a perfect shine from a little bit of like an egg wash and then some grease on it. The cheese is the right color, the tomatoes are the right color, the meat looks good and nice and cooked. It's not too wet looking, it's not smashed. This is a really good looking picture of a burger, and like I said, it looks delicious. That's the first and foremost thing you want in food photography. So often I see people post food photography of things that they've made or they're making for their small business, and while they might be experienced in cooking, the photography itself lets them down a little bit. So that's just something to keep in mind when doing it. And the lighting that you can use to accentuate food is either like lots of soft light to get like even things, or light that's maybe a little bit harder to create more shape. Here, we actually have a lot of light coming in. It's kind of directional, but it is a lot of light. And we'll get to that in just a second, because you can see this reflection right here in that slightly greased up bun. That says that the light itself is coming from camera right, and it's pretty large. And that makes sense. It seems to wrap all the way around. We only get the fall off on the very end here, which is like not even all that much fall off when it goes to the shadowed area. When we look at the shadow itself, we're not getting hard lines, and it seems to be kind of made thin by the volume of light that's going around the burger. The shadow does mostly move camera right to camera left. It does seem to be backwards just a little bit, but really by and large, we're going to be having a large light source that wraps around most of this burger. And that's how we're getting this to be such a nice even exposure on the burger itself, how we get that nice reflection. And so let's talk about some methods to do that. This feels like a bar kind of burger, and maybe this is either actually outside or close to a bank of windows. So I am going to make just a quick set for this, despite me thinking that this is not, the set itself doesn't really matter so much in this case. What does matter to me about the background though is this bright area right here, which it could be a window, it could be a television if this is some sort of bar that, you know, has sports or something on it. We don't have, unfortunately, a burger as an object in Draw.io, so I'm going to make this plant our burger. There we go. What a delicious looking vegan burger. Here, I am going to pretend that this is a window just for the sake of fun, something of that sort. Now, like I said, we want to have a really large source. So in terms of like a real life place that you could be shooting this photo, that easily could look like something like this. They have, you know, let's say it's a fancy microbrewery that's around the corner, and they can open up their like big garage door or their big shutter window, something like that, and let a whole lot of light in. You know, let's say that this is the garage door. We have moved this table over here to get this look and set up this photo. Something like this is totally possible. And that would then give us a huge amount of wrapping light I probably would control this side a little bit. So maybe if it was more like this, and I mean, even if it's something where we actually have a window over here as well. And so like this could be windows. It could be windows that are open so that we're not even having the glass making the light any dimmer at all. You could get it look like this from some setup where it is a huge bank of windows right here and right here. And that's how we're getting all of this light coming in. So the sunlight coming from the right side of camera all the way through these windows, both of them. And yeah, that would create the shadow that pushes just a little bit back away from the camera while mostly getting all of this illuminated and all of this illuminated, wrapping that light around the burger and creating the dark side on the far side. Now, this size of this window right here would help with that wrap and make it not such a drastic fall off in the end, because we're having a bunch of light that's scattering around the world out here, also coming in that window right across here. The sun position here is just, you know, to show you what that might be like. Obviously, it could be pretty much anywhere around. And then if it's a really sunny day with no clouds, with clouds, that would change things as well. I do think that we see some shaping here from maybe, you know, window frames that are being able to be seen in the burger's reflection right there. So that could be this. It could be frames within this window. If this was outdoors and there was like some sort of patio where we had columns, you know, that supported, you know, the patio roof, that could be what these shapes are either. So this could be open air in some manner like this as well. So whether or not these windows are actually the glass, or if this is all the patio area of a restaurant, you know, either way works. We would then also have light coming in from the window back here. But it's not so much casting on our scene, but instead creating a highlight for the background because we can see the bright space outside. This image right here has such shallow depth of field that what this actually is, we can't tell. So this is just a little bit of flavor to add visual contrast and break out the background just a little bit more. You can notice just composition wise that we have the far background, the mid background, and then our foreground. Our foreground kind of has two positions. It's like front foreground. This is the edge of the table, and then subject area foreground. And the burger itself sits in the foreground, but is contrasted against that darker background. That's something to be taking note of as well, because we want to have enough light back here that's either coming from this window or coming from these windows to actually make sure that we get a little bit of tone, you know, in the background itself. So this is a way to do this with basically free lighting. You use the sun, you set your table up in a certain way, and then you get your exposure using these big banks of windows. Now, if we wanted to set this up though, and do it manually, and not rely on the sun, or let's say, yeah, you planned on using the sun, but you show up and you can't actually use the sun because it's so cloudy, whatever day you picked. So yeah, what do you do? What do you do then? Well, we'll take away the light path there, and this would require some equipment or some large pieces of diffusion at least, is use diffusion to create basically a large soft source coming all the way around here. The thing about this is that while the sun itself is not very soft, you don't see the sun as a bright point in any of this reflection. So I think it's above the edge of that roof or the wall or wherever, you know, this is exactly how this is positioned. It's above it. So we're not seeing it. So the light that we're actually getting in here is all bouncing off of the world, out of the sky, the atmosphere, that kind of stuff. So it is a large, somewhat diffuse source because of that. Don't be fooled by the two dimensions here, that the sun is not just, you know, about to set and punching right straight across. I would say that we take this diffusion and we're going to make it resizable, and we want to have, you know, 2 6x or something, you know, of the sort here, and we're going to kind of have this one be flat to it and this one be turned, and then we're going to cast our light from a lamp through it. Now, you need a lot of light here, and you need a lot of light to illuminate the entirety of these frames. So you're gonna need some like kind of more powerful lights, especially because we're trying to make it look like sunlight. If this is a window that we can be doing this at, then we will have the benefit of some sunlight coming in as long as you're shooting during the day, even if it's not strong enough to get this original look that you were hoping for. And so you can do this setup either inside of the space or outside. Let's just say that this is some sort of patio, and so we have like some kind of columns and walls that are present here, and that is what is creating these shapes right here and right here. And so that way, when we actually are getting the light here, we're passing it through and we're getting these as part of the reflections, but they're not so strong and light's going in between them more so that it's not that we have a big shadow laying across our subject either. The lighting itself is kind of independent of making this cast a shadow onto our subject. We see it, but it's not causing a shadow in of itself. You could do this like this as well, where we have it over here, and then in this case, you would have this one on the camera right be specifically the light that is stronger. We are trying to wrap the light around with this setup. Obviously, since this is like two-dimensional, you can't see that these would be vertical in their positioning, but we just have this at a little bit of an angle, so that way these are all but touching each other, maybe showing the column in between them. And that way you get to look at the various columns. How close these are to your subject is going to depend on how powerful your lamp is. If you need more exposure, you can't have these be as far back, which means you might lose the reflection of this column if you're, all the way inside here and you're blocking it with the diffusion itself. But if you have powerful lamps and you can put this outside that space just a little bit, then you can be getting these kinds of reflections. You could need a third one here, but basically the goal is to create almost one single huge piece of diffusion between all of these columns so that it wraps all the way around. I know that this isn't exactly the right shape, but in my view, ignore the flat part here, but you kind of want to have your light be curving around like this around the burger. That way we get the exposure on the table itself that you can see on the other sides. The table is very evenly lit all the way across, and the light actually is just curving around until we get to this side. And then that's why when we get to right here, the light's falling off and it's being shadowed by the stronger light from the right side here. Basically, the main thing you need here is a big, long source. If you didn't need to have the columns in particular, for whatever reason, maybe your space doesn't call for it, that kind of thing, you really could just take two big 6x6, sheets of diffusion. That could even be the center of a 5-in-1 reflector that's really large, one of the big, 5x7 ones or 5x8 ones. It could be a legit 6x6. It could be shower curtains, whatever diffusion material you're using and fits your budget and fits the experience of your crew is what you can be using. And so you could even do something like this, where if you don't need those columns to be specifically reflected and you just want to have a big, nice hot spot right across the bun, you could do something that looks as simple as this. This is 2 lamps, 2 pieces of diffusion, a couple stands to support everything. That's pretty easy. And then we would just be placing our camera right at burger height, basically somewhere right about here to get that look. And then we would have this window in the background as well. And so, basically you have this whole natural one where the light's coming in windows in an actual building. You could be making the patio or the windows themselves be what is the motivator for the light, or you could be, fully inside the building. We're faking that there's windows here and we're using diffusion to create this large soft source as if there was a bunch of windows. This is great for if you are shooting in a restaurant and you're only being able to film at night. In this case, you might actually also need some light inside. That would be great use for like a space light or something just in here behind the table to make sure that we get enough light in the space itself. I would probably flag this so that it doesn't cast on the burger, because if you'll notice, the shadow here doesn't have any edge to it. And even though this is a bright spot in the back and I'm theorizing that this could be a window, it's not creating any edge either. It's a bright spot, but it's not a light source for the burger itself. The burger is being only lit from our key side here, which is, you know, sort of wrapping around camera side. But if we needed that extra exposure for the background, a space light would be very, very helpful. In that case, you would also need to do something to mask that this window is dark outside if you were only able to film at night, but you wanted it to be during the day. And with that, here are 3 different setups that you could use to light an image like this one. This is a really cool image for food. They're using a huge source of light here to wrap that light around and really illuminate it all the way across. Really, that focus on the colors in the image itself, I think, are also incredibly important. You want to get that white balance right, otherwise food starts to look weird. Any of these could create a look that's like this. Really, we want to watch that shadow here. One thing about any of these is that light is pretty kind of top down. The sources of the light aren't making that shadow super long, so that's why I wouldn't say that the sun is lower in the sky. It's just, you know, kind of coming across, hitting it, and then that shadow is being filled in and wrapped by all of the light that is coming from either our real sources or our sun bouncing around the environment. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to get my free Filmmakers Tools template, that's available for my Patreon. That's linked down in the video's description. It is completely free. You don't even have to sign up, but if you do want to sign up, you get notified about new videos. If you do want to join as a paid member, you can vote on upcoming topics and get some extra goodies, including these lighting diagram files so that you can look a little bit more deeply. If you like videos like this, please give it a like down below. That really helps me reach new viewers who also like these kinds of videos using the YouTube algorithm. You can also subscribe for upcoming videos about tools and techniques, cinematography, lighting, and micro-budget filmmaking in general. I have some really cool videos that are coming out over the next couple months. I'm really excited to share them with you all. Again, thank you so much for watching this week. Take care of yourselves, take care of those around you, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.